Hello, travelers and monster catchers abound. I'm Stella Ferris, and you've crash landed on the Monster Catchers Journal podcast, and I hope you enjoy this riveting tale that I'm about to tell you today. The wind screamed across the Inado Desert like a living thing. Not normal wind, either. Inado winds carried whispers. Some said the desert was haunted by lost glyph catchers who wandered too far into the dunes. Others claimed the sand itself was alive beneath the surface, shifting and breathing like ancient glyphs while ancient glyphs tunneled below. But after years of traveling Nibiru, I had learned something important. Legends usually start it because somebody survived something terrifying. The endless sky above us glowed with the eternal light of Nibiru's twin suns, while the planet's 3 moons shimmered faintly overhead beside them. Day and night never truly existed on Nibiru. Instead, the world lived in an endless twilight, where the suns burned constantly and the moons watched from above without ever leaving the sky. And standing in the middle of the Inado Desert, beneath all 5 celestial lights, I was beginning to understand why people feared this place so much. I adjusted the scarf around my mouth as glowing grains of orange sand whipped against my goggles. My rover groaned behind me, already half buried, despite only stopping for a few minutes. "Remind me again why we came out here," Zena shouted over the storm. "Because you said the signal could be rare," Luna yelled back, while holding on to Myrno, who looked seconds away from throwing up. I said uncommon, not death-worthy. Beak sat on top of the rover, screeching dramatically at the storm, as if he personally hated weather itself. I glanced down at the scanner in my hand. The glyph detector gun flickered violently. One signal unknown, classification, movement pattern erratic, power output unstable. My heart pounded. Unknown glyphs were dangerous, especially in the Inado Desert. The desert had a reputation for mutating glyphs exposed to ancient cosmic radiation storms that rolled endlessly across the dunes every few decades. Most catchers avoided the region entirely, but me, I had never been very good at walking away from mysteries. The scanner beeped again, closer, very close. Then the sand moved, not shifted, moved. A massive ripple surged beneath the dunes beside us. "Stella Ferris," Luna screamed. The ground exploded. Sand erupted 30 feet into the air as a gigantic creature burst from beneath the desert floor. Beak shrieked and immediately flew into my face. The creature landed with terrifying force. At first, my brain couldn't even process what I was looking at. It had the powerful hind legs and tail of a kangaroo, but its body moved with the unnatural twitching precision of a spider. 8 glossy black eyes reflected the light of the twin suns from a narrow face covered in glowing cosmic fur. Long clawed forearms twitched constantly as if feeling vibrations in the air, and its fur stars, literal stars. Its body shimmered like the galaxy itself. Tiny constellations drifted beneath translucent pink-purple fur, sparkling every time it moved. The creature let out a clicking growl, then vanished, not disappearing entirely. It moved so fast it practically blinked out of existence. "Where did it go?" Zena yelled. A hiss echoed behind us. The creature stood atop the rover, its claws slowly scraping across the metal. "Kirk!" Beak puffed up angrily. The spider kangaroo crouched low, then spat webbing. Bright silver strands shot toward us like harpoons. "Move!" I tackled Luna sideways as the web slammed into the sand behind us and hardened instantly into crystal-like strands. "Okay," I gasped. "That is definitely not normal webbing." The glyph screeched. The sound echoed unnaturally across the desert. Then the dunes around us began to move. Small shapes emerged everywhere, hundreds of glowing spider eyes. My stomach dropped. "Those are babies," Zena whispered. Tiny versions of the creature crawled from the sand, chirping and clicking around the larger glyph. The mother lowered herself protectively, and suddenly everything made sense. We hadn't stumbled into a hunting ground. We stumbled into a nest. The giant glyph's eyes locked onto us. She wasn't attacking us because she was evil. She thought we were predators. "Don't attack her," I said carefully. Beak looked personally offended by the statement. The mother glyph stomped once. The baby scattered behind her. Then the wind changed, the desert suddenly vibrating with energy. Purple lighting crackled across the endless sky. Between the twin suns and the three moons, cosmic storm. Exact thing we didn't want. The sand beneath our feet began shaking violently, and then came the screaming, not from the Glyph, from beneath the dunes. A massive worm-like creature erupted from the desert floor behind the nest. Its body was covered in jagged crystal spikes and rows of circular teeth. A doom mauler, one of the most aggressive predators in Inado. The mother Glyph immediately positioned herself between the mauler and her babies. The mauler roared, the babies panicked, the mother lunged, and the desert exploded into chaos. The mauler slammed into her, throwing both creatures across the sand. Webbing shot through the air, while the mauler snapped crystalline jaws inches from her throat. "We have to help her," I shouted. "Are you insane?" Zena screamed. "Yes." I pulled out my capture gauntlet and sprinted forward before anybody could stop me. The mauler reared upward. The mother Glyph kicked it hard enough to crack one of its crystal plates, but the mauler retaliated by biting into her shoulder. She shrieked. One of the babies ran towards the fight. The mauler noticed immediately. His jaw opened. "No, you don't!" I fired a pulse round straight into the side of its head. The mauler whipped toward me furiously. Worst decision of my life. The thing charged fast. Way too fast. I barely rolled out of the way before its jaws slammed into the sand where I had been standing. "Stella Ferris!" Luna screamed. The mauler lunged again, then suddenly, thwip! Silver webbing wrapped around the mauler's face. The mother Glyph had saved me. She planted both hind legs into the sand and yanked backward with terrifying strength. The mauler roared blindly. I didn't hesitate. "Now!" Beak unleashed a sonic blast directly into the mauler's exposed underbelly, while Ignazura slammed into its side with enough force to crack the creature's crystal armor. The mauler screeched furiously before finally burrowing back beneath the dunes and disappearing into the desert's darkness below the sands. Silence fell, heavy breathing, drifting sands. The mother Glyph collapsed. The babies immediately surrounded her, chirping anxiously. I approached slowly. Her 8 eyes watched me carefully. Not hostile now, just exhausted. Up close I could see the injury on her shoulder. Crystal venom from the mauler was spreading beneath her glowing fur. If untreated, she'd die. I knelt carefully. "It's okay," I whispered. She twitched nervously. One baby hissed at me. Another climbed onto my boot. I slowly reached into my satchel and removed a healing vial Professor Orion had made for venom stabilization before he turned evil. The mother watched every movement carefully as I sprayed the wound. The venom hissed. The glow beneath her fur stabilized. The babies calmed almost instantly. Then something unexpected happened. The mother lowered her head, not in weakness, in trust. My chest tightened. Slowly, carefully, I reached towards her. The cosmic fur felt warm, like touching starlight itself. The Glyph detector gun suddenly activated on its own. New Glyph identified. Species classification: Arachnaroo. Type: cosmic silk. Threat level: high. Temperament: protective, territorial, intelligent. Special ability: nebula webbing. Silk capable of storing cosmic energy and creating temporary illusion fields. I stared at the screen in amusement. "Arachnaroo," I whispered. The mother blinked slowly at me. Then one of the babies climbed onto my shoulder. Another crawled onto Beak. Beak screamed in horror. I laughed so hard I nearly fell into the sand. By the time the cosmic storm finally drifted beyond the dunes, the eternal glow of the twin suns still burned and the three moons still hung overhead, while shimmering softly beside the suns. The mother Arachnaroo stood atop a dune with her babies surrounding her like tiny glowing stars scattered across the desert. Then she looked back at me one final time and approached, slowly, carefully. She pressed her forehead gently against mine. The capture gauntlet glowed. A soft cosmic symbol formed in the air, not forced capture, bound acceptance. My eyes widened. "You want to come with me?" She chirped softly. Behind me, Zena looked absolutely stunned. "You made friends with the nightmare spider kangaroo." "She's not a nightmare." At the exact moment One of the babies hissed at Myrno and stole his snack. Okay, maybe a little nightmare. Luna burst out laughing. The desert wind carried glowing sand around us as the great Arachnaroo stood beside me beneath the endless sky of Nibiru, and honestly, that was the moment I realized something. The most terrifying creatures in the universe were sometimes just mothers trying to protect their families. The trip back to the sanctuary was absolute chaos. Not dangerous chaos, baby chaos. There is a difference. The adult Arachnaroo sat calmly on top of the rover like some majestic cosmic guardian while her babies turned the inside of the vehicle into a complete nightmare. One was hanging from the ceiling with webbing. Another had somehow stolen Luna's scarf and wrapped itself in it like a glowing burrito. A third kept trying to fight Beak every 5 minutes. "Stop biting his wings," Zena yelled. The baby Arachnaroo hissed proudly while dangling from Beak's tail feathers. Beak screeched dramatically like he was being murdered. "You're a golden scarab. Act dignified," I said. He immediately slapped the baby with one wing. The baby slapped him back. Myrno was curled into a ball in Luna's lap, looking deeply traumatized by the entire situation. Meanwhile, the mother Arachnaroo watched all of this with the exhausted expression of a parent who had fully given up. Honestly, relatable. By the time we reached the sanctuary hidden beneath the Inado Desert, every single one of us was covered in webbing. The giant stone doors slid open with a loud rumble. Warm golden light illuminated the underground sanctuary chambers, while distant glyph calls echoed through the massive halls. Waterfalls poured through the glowing crystal walls, while dozens of rescued glyphs wandered safely through the sanctuary habitats. The moment the rover parked, the babies exploded outward like tiny cosmic missiles. Oh no, too late. One immediately launched itself onto a chandelier. Another disappeared into the ventilation shafts. A third somehow ended up riding a Gnizera like a horse. The adult Arachnaroo slowly climbed from the rover and stretched her massive legs while the sanctuary lights reflected across her galaxy like fur. Several nearby glyphs froze. One verdant stalk fainted directly into a pond. "Well," Luna said while staring at the giant spider kangaroo, "this should go smoothly." It did not go smoothly at all. Within 20 minutes, 2 babies had webbed Astra to the ceiling after she tried feeding them muffins. Beak had started screaming contest with another baby. One baby stole Professor Orion's glasses. Another was hiding inside the kitchen sink for unknown reasons. Myrno refused to enter any room without Luna carrying him. And somehow, one of them managed to web Zena's boots to the floor. "I can't move," Zena said flatly. "You sound upset." "I am upset." I laughed so hard, I nearly dropped the glyph detector gun. But despite the chaos, the sanctuary slowly adapted. The babies began calming down once they realized they were safe. Their nervous clicking became softer, curious instead of defensive. The mother Arachnaroo stayed close to them constantly, watching every movement carefully. I noticed she barely ate, barely rested, always watching, always protective. That night I sat beside her enclosure habitat, while the twin suns and 3 moons shined endlessly through the crystal ceiling panels above the sanctuary garden. Because there was a little light that could get in through the little window above the sanctuary. The babies slept in the giant glowing web pile beside their mother. Honestly, they looked adorable while unconscious, awake, demons, but sleeping, cute. The mother Arachnaroo slowly lowered herself beside me. "You're worried about them, huh?" I asked quietly. She chirped softly. I understood immediately. Finding homes. There were too many babies for one sanctuary habitat. Long-term Arachnaroos were intelligent, social glyphs that needed space and trusted companions, thankfully. That's exactly why we started the glyph adoption services. Most people thought glyph catchers only capture glyphs for battles or exploration missions, not us. At the sanctuary, rescued glyphs could recover, heal, and if possible, find proper homes with families trained to care for them. And honestly, the baby Arachnaroos were perfect adoption candidates. Dangerous, chaotic, slightly criminal, but lovable. The next morning, we activated the sanctuary broadcast system. Within days, adoption requests flooded in from all across Nibiru. Families, researchers, farmers, even retired catchers. Apparently, everybody wanted a glowing cosmic spider kangaroo, which honestly raised some questions about society. The adoption chamber was packed during the first meeting. I stood beside the babies while they climbed all over me like living glitter monsters. Okay, I announced. Few rules. Before anyone adopts an Arachnaroo, one baby immediately bit my sleeve. Rule 1. They bite. Another baby fired webbing directly into Beak's face. Rule 2. They really bite. Beak crashed into a wall dramatically. A small child in the crowd raised his hand excitedly. Can they climb walls? At the exact moment, one of the babies sprinted vertically across the ceiling. Yes. Another woman nervously raised her hand. Are they venomous? No. Pause. They are emotionally dangerous, though. Luna snorted, laughing from across the room. Over the next several weeks, families bonded with the babies one by one. One tiny Arachnaroo bonded with an elderly gardener who grew moon lilies in the western dunes. Another bonded with a shy young girl who had trouble making friends. One particularly chaotic boy bonded with a professional rover racer. Honestly, that one made sense. Each adoption ceremony was emotional. The babies would chirp softly before climbing onto their new partners and accepting the bond willingly. The mother Arachnaroo watched every single adoption carefully, and somehow I think she understood she wasn't losing them. She was making sure they survived. On the final adoption day, only one baby remained, the smallest one, the one that constantly hid behind its sibling. It curled nervously against its mother's while the families passed by. No bond, no connection. The little one looked heartbroken, then quietly, Myrna waddled forward. Everyone froze. The tiny Arachnaroo blinked nervously. Myrna slowly offered it a half muffin. The baby stared at him, then gently accepted it. Luna gasped, "Oh my gosh." The baby carefully climbed onto Myrna's head and curled up there happily. The entire room went silent. I smiled. "Well," I said softly, "looks like this one already found its home." The mother Arachnaroo lowered her head proudly, and for the first time since we met her in the Inado Desert, she finally looked relaxed. Luna slowly stepped forward, her eyes wide. "Oh no," Zena whispered beside me. That look means she is emotionally attached already. I can see that." The tiny Arachnaroo peeked nervously from behind Myrna's ear. Compared to its siblings, it was noticeably smaller and fluffier, with oversized ears and slightly dimmer cosmic markings that twinkled softly like distant stars. Honestly, it was unbelievably cute. Luna crouched down carefully. "Hey, little guy," she said softly. The baby tilted its head, then sneezed, webbing directly onto her nose. Beak fell off his perch, screaming with laughter. Luna wiped the webbing off slowly. "I love him. Of course you do," Zena muttered. The mother Arachnaroo watched closely from across the habitat chamber. Her massive cosmic eyes flicked toward Luna, then toward the tiny baby. The little Arachnaroo hesitated for only a second before hopping from Myrna's head directly into Luna's arms, and immediately wrapped around her shoulders like a living scarf. Luna made the softest emotional noise I had ever heard. "Oh my gosh," the baby chirped happily, while its glowing tail curled around her arm. Then the bond symbol appeared. Soft silver light spiraled around Luna's wrist, while tiny cosmic threads wrapped gently around the baby Arachnaroo's paws. The sanctuary light flickered softly in response. Accepted bond, not forced, chosen. I smiled immediately. "Well," I said, "looks like somebody made her decision." Luna looked absolutely stunned. "He picked me." The tiny Arachnaroo rubbed its face against my cheek affectionately. "Yep," I said. "Congratulations, you're officially a spider kangaroo mom now." Zena burst out laughing. "Oh, this is going to ruin your life." "He is not ruining my life." At that exact moment, the baby fired webbing into Luna's hair. Accidentally. Pause. Okay, maybe a little. The mother Arachnaroo slowly approached. The room became quiet again. She lowered her massive head towards Luna and the baby. For a moment, I honestly thought she was saying goodbye, but instead, she gently nudged Luna's shoulder. Approval. Trust. The tiny Arachnaroo chirped proudly, as if introducing Luna to its mother officially. "Oh no," I whispered dramatically. You've been accepted by the cosmic spider family." "I'm honored," Luna said, while trying unsuccessfully to untangle webbing from her sleeve. The baby immediately climbed onto her head, then onto her shoulder, then upside down under her arm, then back onto her head. "It has too much energy," Zena observed. "It's tiny," Luna argued. The baby hissed at Beak. "Tiny and violent," I corrected. The sanctuary slowly returned to normal as the last adoption officially concluded. Families departed happily with their new Glyph partners, while the remaining rescue Glyphs wandered peacefully through the glowing underground gardens. The mother Arachnaroo sat beside the crystal water habitat, finally calm now that her babies had safe homes in Luna. Luna spent the next hour trying to choose a name, while the tiny Arachnaroo cautiously stole shiny objects from nearby tables. At one point, it somehow stole Professor Orion's pin, 3 gemstones, an entire muffin tray. Although I won't tell you why we had Professor Orion's pin. I guess it's because he gave it to us before he became evil and started trying to take over everything. Anyways, "How is it carrying that?" Zena yelled. The baby hissed proudly from inside the muffin tray. Luna laughed so hard she nearly fell over. Finally, she scooped the tiny Glyph into her arms. "I think," she said softly, "I'm going to name you Nebby." The tiny Arachnaroo chirped happily, then immediately sneezed, webbing into her face again. "Perfect match," I said.